The Ultimate Fighting Championship's heavyweight division finds itself in a state of frustrating limbo, with interim title holder Tom Aspinall publicly calling out undisputed champion Jon Jones for what he perceives as deliberate stalling tactics driven primarily by financial considerations. The rising British star, who has steamrolled through the division's elite contenders with a frightening combination of technical precision and concussive knockout power, finds his championship aspirations held hostage by what appears to be an endless negotiation process. Aspinall's frustration stems from the stark contrast between his own eagerness to compete against the best and Jones' apparent reluctance to commit to the bout without securing what the champion deems an acceptable payday, creating a situation where the sport's competitive integrity seems secondary to financial bargaining. Jon Jones, the most decorated light heavyweight in UFC history and current heavyweight kingpin, has built his reputation not just on unparalleled in-cage dominance, but also on his shrewd understanding of the fight business. His November 2025 victory over Stipe Miocic, while impressive, did little to silence critics who argue that the champion has been selectively avoiding the division's most dangerous emerging threats. UFC President Dana White's repeated assurances that Jones would face Aspinall before the end of the year now ring increasingly hollow as weeks pass without any concrete developments, lending credence to Aspinall's claims that monetary demands rather than competitive spirit are dictating the division's trajectory. The interim champion's recent revelation about an impending high-level meeting to address the impasse suggests the UFC hierarchy is growing impatient with the prolonged negotiations, though whether this will translate into meaningful progress remains uncertain. Aspinall's critique cuts deeper than simple fight promotion. It strikes at the heart of what many believe championship martial arts should represent. The Salford native argues that true champions should be motivated first and foremost by the challenge of defending their status against the most worthy contenders, not by maximizing paydays while leaving the division in stasis. His willingness to face Jones under virtually any reasonable circumstances stands in stark contrast to the champion's cautious approach, creating a narrative that pits the hungry young contender against the established superstar, seemingly more concerned with preserving his legacy and bank account than testing himself against fresh challenges. This dynamic has become increasingly common in modern MMA, where established stars leverage their positions to minimize risk while maximizing reward, often at the expense of divisional momentum and fan interest. The physical toll of Jones' legendary career, spanning nearly 2 decades of elite competition, forms a crucial subtext to this brewing confrontation. Aspinall has been careful to acknowledge Jones' historic accomplishments while simultaneously suggesting that the champion's extraordinary mileage makes him particularly vulnerable to a dynamic, hard-hitting challenger in his prime. The British fighter's analysis of Jones' current abilities reveals a thoughtful strategic mind at work behind his devastating punching power. He recognizes that while Jones' fight IQ remains unparalleled, the cumulative effect of countless training camps and brutal fights may have eroded the reflexes and durability that once made him nearly untouchable. This assessment transforms what might otherwise be standard pre-fight bravado into a compelling technical argument about the realities of combat sport's aging curves. Jones' characteristic silence in response to Aspinall's accusations speaks volumes in an era where most fighters take to social media to address every rumor and criticism. The champion's social media presence suggests he remains in training, but his refusal to directly engage with Aspinall's claims or provide clarity about his intentions has only fueled speculation about his motivations. Some industry observers interpret this as a calculated strategy to maintain negotiating leverage, while others see it as evidence that Jones recognizes Aspinall presents the most dangerous stylistic matchup of his heavyweight tenure thus far. The champion's past willingness to face lesser-known opponents for modest purses early in his career stands in stark contrast to his current approach, suggesting either a fundamental shift in priorities or an acknowledgement that at 36 years old, with nothing left to prove, financial security has become his paramount concern. For Aspinall, this extended period of uncertainty represents both a professional challenge and a personal test of patience. The interim champion maintains a grueling training regimen, knowing he must remain prepared for a potential short-notice opportunity should negotiations suddenly progress. His public statements walk a careful line between respecting Jones' accomplishments and applying increasing pressure through media and fan engagement. This balancing act reflects the political realities of modern MMA, where fighters must navigate complex relationships with promotion, peers, and fans while advocating for their careers. Aspinall's position is particularly precarious, as interim champion. He holds a legitimate claim to the title, yet without the undisputed champion's cooperation, his status risks becoming meaningless in the eyes of many observers. The UFC's role in this standoff deserves scrutiny. While the promotion has publicly backed the matchup, its reluctance to force the issue through more aggressive measures, such as threatening to strip Jones of the title or significantly altering financial terms, suggests either tacit approval of the champion's position or fear of damaging their relationship with one of the sport's few crossover stars. This institutional hesitation creates a dangerous precedent where established champions can effectively hold divisions hostage, knowing the promotion will prioritize star power over competitive merit. The situation echoes previous UFC eras where dominant champions like Georges St. Pierre and Conor McGregor were allowed extended periods of inactivity, to the detriment of their respective divisions and the sport's overall health. From the fans' perspective, the prolonged uncertainty surrounding this potential superfight encapsulates the most frustrating aspects of modern combat sports. A Jones vs. Aspinall matchup presents the ideal convergence of stylistic intrigue, generational clash, and championship stakes, exactly the type of high-profile bout that should be simple to arrange in a sport theoretically built on matching the best against the best. Yet instead of clear progress, the MMA community endures endless speculation, thinly veiled accusations, and organizational stagnation that steadily erodes enthusiasm for what should represent a golden era for the heavyweight division. This growing disconnect between fan expectations that champions should defend against clear top contenders as a matter of professional obligation and the commercial realities of superstar fighters operating as independent entities highlights a fundamental tension in the sport's evolution. As negotiations reach a critical juncture, several plausible scenarios emerge. The most straightforward resolution would see Jones accepting the bout under renegotiated financial terms, preserving his championship reign while cementing his legacy against a dangerous new challenger. A more dramatic though less probable outcome could involve the UFC taking the extraordinary step of stripping an active, healthy champion for refusing to face the division's undisputed top contender, a move complicated by Jones' status as one of the sport's few genuine pay-per-view draws. Perhaps most concerning would be a continuation of the current stalemate, effectively paralyzing the heavyweight division's progression while both athletes explore alternative options. For Aspinall, the strategy remains consistent: maintain relentless public advocacy while staying in peak physical condition, understanding that in MMA's mercurial landscape, opportunities can materialize with little warning. The ramifications of this impasse transcend the immediate participants, touching upon foundational questions about the very nature of championship legitimacy in mixed martial arts. Does holding a UFC title represent an ongoing commitment to face all worthy challengers? Or has it become primarily a financial instrument in an increasingly commodified sports entertainment landscape? As Aspinall wages his very public campaign for recognition as the mandatory challenger, and Jones maintains his characteristically calculated silence, the entire MMA community awaits an outcome that could establish precedent for how the organization balances sporting merit against commercial interests in its championship framework. This behind-the-scenes power struggle may ultimately prove more consequential than the fight itself, potentially reshaping how future title negotiations are conducted across all weight classes.